Only it does it in a lot more controlled manner, right? So these things can be set up to push or pull. So you ISO guys, you ever go in the lab up there? Yeah. See, there's a setup to push because of that crush. Ours is going to pull. So this is actually a load cell up here. Right? So you see that max force number, if I pull on that, it changes. So that's the number we're going to look at. See who's got the best. Yeah, just one.
Watch your thumb.
They actually got this one set up too, so I can do another one. All right, so what you'll see as this thing starts to pull, this graph's going to go straight up, right? When it makes that first break, it's going to come down. So that's the first break of the yarn there. And then after that, it's going to keep bouncing up and down as it keeps pulling that screen, right? So that shows us how much lamination we have. So we look for two things, like I said before. So the minimum on this is 25-foot measure, right? So you can see this one's clearly at 40-something, so we're almost double the spec. But we also look for that 100% film tearing bond. So it has to have both of those things in order to be considered a pass.
You said 100%? I thought you said 75.
They're getting 75.
Oh, okay.
We want 100. Oh, that doesn't pop out of the grid. I didn't give these guys enough, did I?
Oh, Jim.
I know. That's why I let guys like that do this stuff. I don't do it.
The guys that don't normally in here, that's also how they do the fleece of heat. When we're waiting for them to get back to us. Same process.
Is that yours?
We might have to cut some more out.
Well, I should have moved you guys over further.
This is competitive crew, so.
Yeah, what was Hammer's number?
74 point something?
No, it's
That one was 67.1.
Oh, Michael White.
Now, when we actually do this test, we test all 5 specimens and take the average. So their machines are all fancy. So all the labs and the plants have these foot pedals. Ours don't have that. We got little toggle switches that open and close the jaws. And also, ours doesn't start automatically either. We got to hit the starter button. So it's a little bit different. So yeah, the corporate lab does not have as fancy equipment as the plant lab. Yeah. Matter of fact, our lab is not much bigger than this, really, is it? And so yeah, our lab tests TPO from all the plants, modified bitumen from all those plants, and then all the injection molding parts, as well as some third-party manufactured stuff too, funnels through the lab. So these guys are quite busy. So the other thing we're looking for in this is it's called the average of the 5 peaks, right? So you can see how this thing's bouncing back and forth, up and down. So once it's done, it'll take the average of those 5 peaks and give us a number as well. 54.5. Like I said, minimum spec's 0.5, we're twice double the spec. $71.6.
Holy smokes.
Who's that? All right.
Oh, Louie.
Oh man.
What hammer have?
Probably use a new heart
Oh,
valve.
74.
Probably be a new heart valve. Made the TPO.
I would not surprise me.
The green's still climbing there. So there was a lady in Gainesville that had the record for a while. She had 71.3.
How's he just making that?
It's a story that he told when he was back in injection molding. He told the guys back there, I don't know all the details to it, but I had to do something with a while back.
Slightly work inappropriate story.
That's all right.
Yeah.
As well.
Also built like this one, too, so it kind of fits.
69.4. For you? And everybody?
Winner right here.
Ohio State?
The third one you gave him.
Oh,
For about
oh, I put two of them together. Is this anything like tensile strength?
Close, so we'll talk about that one too. So this test is called pliant eating. So we also test the weld another way, right? So you guys saw how we put this in the jaw and kind of butterflies it apart. So when you do your seam strength, it's a little bit smaller sample. We're still testing the weld. You actually pull the weld apart this way. It's a lot tougher to get it apart. Oh man.
They're falling apart already.
That test is rigged. Hold on.
Yeah, we might have to
Hold
another one of his samples.
Record low.
Holy jeez, what'd you get, 25?
He's about,
You hit the minimum.
he's a little above 30.
A little above 30.
What'd you do?
I don't know what.
So you guys also got to remember we're welding on scrap product,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So you know profile's not quite right.
Oh yeah, we'll
Don't-
blame
don't
it on
make
that.
excuses.
We'll make it on that.
Excuses for him.
Well, it also kind of explains this one was 64.6. All right. So you guys know your profile's not exactly flat, even on a good sheet, right? So that kind of shows some of the imperfections in the sheet. You know, clearly the welder's doing the welder's job. We didn't really affect that part of it. So 35.1.
Solid.
Is that the lowest?
You ran out of samples.
Hold on. Go use mine. This is the winner.
All right.
That's the one.
That's the winner.
He's got another opening. You wanna get
We
another
need-
one tested?
We need a recount, you know what I'm saying?
Your PA is good doing that. Yeah, they bought that wrong.
There we go. Oh, she's cool.
He made them two.
Come on, climb it.
Where's
the little thing there? Dark blue. Wrong color. Yeah, no wonder it's gonna fail. Dang it.
Man, I didn't cut the samples quite right. I didn't give you enough time to actually grab it. But it looks like you're gonna beat your first one.
That's what I'm saying.
Not.
Just dip right down.
Well, he's right on it.
They were looking
Consistency is
Homeboy
key.
is
boy.
consistent.
Consistency is key, boys.
That's right.
Just as soon as he said it.
Yeah.
Bought that second one.
See, you should be happy, because now he's got hammer as a high and you as a low.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all set. He's like, I'm tired of going out. Go in. Grandkids.
34.4. So you know you're consistent.
That's
All right, so you mentioned tensils, right?
yeah.
So tensile strength is a little bit wider sample that we put in there, but it's just a one bar, right? Do the same deal, you just pull it till it pops. So we're looking at max load for that, and we also want to see how far it stretches or elongation. That has to do with the polymers and some of the scrim, that kind of stuff. We also do what's called a tear test on this. So these are tear samples.
That may be her retains, maybe. That might be her retains or something.
I don't want to mess it up for them.
Yeah, don't be
So normally if you cut your tears, they'll have a little slit right here, right? You put one on the top, one on the bottom. Tears are like a sheet of paper. So we do it machine direction, we do it cross direction. Sometimes machine direction bounces around the spec. Right? It's pretty close. Cross direction, we never have an issue with. Bless you. And so the funny thing about tears is the thicker the product, the worse the numbers. So a 45 mil will outperform an 80 mil in that test. Because the 45 mil and the 60 mil will have a tendency, as it starts to tear, it'll start to twist on itself, right? And so when it does that, it causes a little more tension. Whereas the 80 mil holds its shape, and you just tear it like a piece of paper. Somebody asked me the other night, and I probably need to check this out to see if Milliken or Highland has better numbers. Because we've got all the data for that. That guy back there got to pull it out for me. All right, so we did slice, machines, tinsel, tears. That's it.
You didn't talk about seam strength.
Seam strength. Oh, that's a little bit different sample as well. Same deal. We're testing that seam that we just made right there, right? And so the reason we do all this testing is, one, it's required by ASTM, but two, is just to see how well it's going to hold up on the roof. And we've got all this historical data. So you guys ran some Firestone scrim the other day. Maybe not your crew, but you guys hear about that? And so when we test that Firestone, we're going to know how it compares to our normal stuff. And Highland and Milliken are usually pretty close on numbers for the overall stuff. So we'll see how this Firestone compares. Firestone's also a direct competitor of ours in TPO. And we've actually tested some of their product, and it's pretty good, I gotta be honest. We're right there with them, but they make a pretty damn good product. And, some of the theory behind that is if they're making their own scrim, they're probably gonna make it very compatible to the polymers they're buying, right? There's only so many polymer producers. We use Ineos and Vinyl Cell, and Cedar's been running some trials on some Exxon. You guys did any Exxon trials here? I know they did them in Mount Vernon. I don't know if you guys did. So Exxon's another good one. There's a real good resin out there. It's called Borealis. It's made in Germany. The unfortunate part about it is there is no holding tanks or supply in the States. So you can only get it in boxes, right? You guys can only imagine how quick you go through a box of that stuff. But it's super good stuff, I will say that. Alright, so from that, have you guys ever seen them use the microscope to give you guys thickness readings, cap over screen, something like that? Alright. So what they'll do is they actually they'll cut it, turn the sample on its side, and here's an image of that. So, I don't know if you guys know Kim, but she's very particular about her equipment. She was very concerned that I was going to touch her microscope and mess something up, so they gave me this printout. So this black right here is your scrim, right? And so under magnification, this thing, you can draw a line from there down to where the scrim, above scrim, and we get a measurement, and we get an overall measurement as well. You guys get your overall thickness gauge out on the line. So that's just a little bit more accurate. In our lab, we do the same thing. We use the thickness gauge and we do the microscope measurements. Color. You guys measure your own color, don't you? Everybody know how the color box works?
So if we tell her tomorrow that that doesn't look cool when you do that, probably gonna upset her.
Yeah, you tell that Monday because I get on a plane tomorrow. I don't know. We took her to lunch today. Maybe she'll be a little bit.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, does everybody know how the little box works? There's a light inside there. All right, so you guys put your sample on there, right? You got that opening. There's a light inside there, and it shoots against that sample and bounces back. And then there's filters in there. So every color has a wavelength to it, right? And so it measures that, and it gives you an LAB reading. And then you guys go off your delta E, right? So the L is the only thing that you guys can control out on the line, right? You're running slate gray, you need to make it lighter or darker, you need to put more in and take some more out, right? So that's the L portion of that. So here's the illustration of the A and the B, right? So your A is your green-red balance, and your B is your yellow-blue balance. So you guys have seen your Specto run that puts a little dot out there somewhere in this field, right? And then it gives you the delta E. All the delta E is, there's a standard in there that has the LAB readings. You read yours, it subtracts the two, and that's how you get your delta E. The delta is the subtraction portion. This is a melt flow indexer, right? So you guys know you use two resins, KS311, CA10A. They are drastically different melt flow ranges. If you were to ever get those backwards, you would not be able to push that product out the die, right? So the KS311, our spec is 8 to 11 melt, and the CA10A is 0.45 to 0.8 melt. So it's not near as viscous as the other stuff. And so the way this thing works is it heats up. There's a little orifice inside here. It's got a hole in it, right? So you load your pellets in, and these things are all fancy. This is not, I never operated anything this fancy years ago. So you load your pellets in there. There's a big plunger. This plunger sits down in there, and you hit go, and this thing will come over, this weight will come over and sit down on top of it, but it won't drop yet, right? So it has to sit there so long to melt that plastic in there. And after that dwell time's up, it'll release that weight, and it'll start pushing it out, and it'll start extruding a little piece of plastic out the bottom of it. And then after so long, it's usually 5 minutes, this arm will come down and cut that plastic, and then you weigh that, and that's your melt flow range. Now, back in my day, this thing wasn't automatic, right? Same deal, it still operated this way, but the weight come over, we put the weight on there, and I had a big bolt right here that held that weight up off of it. And you started a stopwatch. And you had to watch until it come out, and then once you got the time, you pulled that bolt, started your stopwatch again, and it started to pull the plastic out, cut it with one of these, weighed it, and it was good to go. This again is a fancy machine, so you pull this lever right here and that orifice will drop out. And then they use this drill bit to clean out the center of it. And the old ones that I used, there was nothing here. You took that same plunger and you turned it around, you shoved that orifice out the top, right? And I was notorious for grabbing that orifice. I did not keep my hand away from the nozzle. I was notorious for grabbing that thing and burning the crap out of my fingers. So that's probably why they moved me into management, because I kept screwing stuff up. I don't know. So these two next things are ovens. This one's set up for your domestic product, that's for BMI, right? And what we do with those ovens here at the plant level is, it's called dimensional stability, right? So they cut out a 12-inch by 12-inch square, put it in the oven for so long, it comes out. We usually have some kind of apparatus that holds that sample flat, then we measure it with a mic, right? So we know it was 12 by 12 going in, and then when it comes out, it cannot grow more than 0.5% or shrink. If it grows or shrinks more than that, what happens on the roof when it goes through the freeze-thaw cycle, it's going to possibly pull away or pull at those seams, right? That's a pretty stable test. We very rarely have any issue with that. What else we got? Oh, so they got their little freezer over there. We got our samples sitting on. We do a cold temperature bin, right? And so it's the sample basically looks like this. There's an apparatus in there that you load the sample in. It's got a hinge in the middle of it, right? So there's two pieces to it that sit flat like that. I can't get my hands acclimated. Anyway, it sits, straight up and down. Pull this pin and it snaps down. It bends that sample over. And then we look at it under this fancy little light and microscope here, magnification, and it cannot crack. Okay? If it cracks, it's a failure. As far as the plants, that's about all the testing they do on your product. Except length, width, fastener locations, that kind of stuff, right? But as far as physical property testing, that's what they do. Then on top of that, what we do is that same testing, but we also have a longer term heat aging oven where we put your samples in, we weigh them, we put your samples in for 56 days at 275 degrees. We pull them out and we check them. It cannot lose more than 1% of its weight, and it cannot crack if it's bent over a mandrel. And it's a 3-inch mandrel, just a pipe, right? We bend it over it, look at it under a magnifying glass again, and it has to pass both of those things in order to consider a pass, right? So the 56 day is the ASTM minimum. Internally, we keep other samples in there for 70 days for GAF1, GAF4, 90 days for GAF Extreme, right? And if we don't pass the internal spec, we don't get real excited about it, but if we don't pass that 56 day, we know something's going on. And right now we've been having a little trouble with a couple plants passing that 56 days, so there's a study going on up in R&D to try to figure that out. Because you guys all use the same concentrates, all use the same scrim, so something's up with the different extruders, would be our guess anyway. We also weather your product. So we have these 2 weatherometers, right? And we load these little 2x3 samples in there. It sits in there for 4,000 hours, right? And it only exposes it to the cap side. So it exposes it to UV and water. And again, it has to run through that cycle. We pull those out, we bend them and make sure that they can't crack, right? So that thing has been, the old one's been in operation for about 11 years. And we have never seen a failure, ever, from any plant. When I took over the lab a little over 6 years ago, there were some samples in there over 10,000 hours, and they still hadn't failed. So we put a lot of good stuff in the cap layer to make it hold up over time. On top of that, we do what's called a hydrostatic burst test, where we put a sample in between a hydraulic press, and then we shoot water through it to see how much PSI it takes to break the membrane. The last sample I looked at, or test, was 525 PSI to break that membrane. The spec is around, what, 400? 380, 400, something like that. So, well above spec on it. We also have an ozone chamber, right? So same deal. We put samples in this ozone chamber and we expose it to ozone, whatever that is. As a kid, we always heard about the hole in the ozone layer, you know. I never knew what ozone was, but I got a chamber that apparently creates ozone. And so we put it in there for 7 days, we pull it out, we bend it again, and it cannot crack. Right? We don't ever have a failure on that one either. We also do a water absorption test. We take a little disc, we weigh it, we put it in this little apparatus with some water on it, we stick it in an oven, we pull it out of the oven, we weigh it again, and it cannot gain more than 1% weight or pick up more water than that. When we first started doing that, we kind of had a homegrown or homemade apparatus, and we got some crazy numbers, but we finally tuned that in, and that's another one we don't fail. One thing I failed to mention though, on this fly adhesion, the test we just did, we get product, like I said, from all the TPO plants, right? We send these reports out. They don't just go to your plant. They go to a lot of people, right? Cedar City had sent us some product in. We did the fly test, and it failed. Even worse than yours, right?
Mine was that.
So it failed. There was a new individual in the lab at the time, and we thought, okay, he didn't get a good weld, right? Something's wrong. We had one of the other guys welded it, we put it in there, pulled it, got the same numbers. We said, here's what it is, folks. Sent that report out, right? Immediately, Brandon Burton, who is TIA for Cedar City, was on the phone, right? Kevin, what the hell are you doing? This stuff passed, you know. And so we kept looking at it. We went back and welded some more product, and what was happening was it was actually slipping in these grips. So it wasn't holding in there tight. So these are actually fine-tuned adjustments that you can tune it in a little bit more. And we did that, and we got past it. We are not above screwing up either. It does happen.
Oh, they passed at Cedar City. You guys failed at corporate.
Yeah.
Yes, they came at you guys hard then.
Yeah, they did. Brandon's just about as fiery as Tia is. I'll tell you that. But, you know, like I said, I apologize. We sent out the, hey, I'm sorry email type of situation, you know, the Weederchrist and all the others that get the same report. So, but that's the only time that I know of that we've really messed something up like that with the TPO. Any others? Yeah, so we do a nail pull too. You guys will send us product and we got a jig and we poke a nail through it. And we put one, the jig holds it, we put the nail in the other one, we pull it to see how much tension it takes to pop that nail. That's pretty much it, eh? And yeah, like Big Daddy was talking about your fleece adhesion, right? And so the guys last night asked the question of, hey, we were, the overall average on the fleece adhesion was above 3. 3's the minimum spec on it, but there were certain sections of the sheet that were like a 2, right? And they were upset because quality wouldn't let them keep those sheets. Well, the reason we wouldn't let them keep them is fleece has been marketed as an impact resistant type product. But what it's really good for is gluing that product down, right? And if there was a low spot or you didn't have good fleece adhesion in a certain area of the sheet and it was glued down, and it was more susceptible to pull up over time. We had some issues with modified bitumen, and it was a granulated product, had rocks across it, right? And so we tested it, and the overall average was good, right? But we had one lane down the center that had really terrible rub numbers, lost a bunch of rocks. And the plant saw the same thing, but they went ahead and shipped the product down, right? I'll show you some pictures of why you don't want to do that when you get back in. This product ended up on the Dallas Morning News' building, and it was not a good look for us. It's well over $1 million claim on that one. That's why each of the lanes have to be, within spec. If not, there's going to be problems. So we got, oh man, I'm a little ahead of time. All right, you guys want to take, 20 minutes, get a break, go to the bathroom, eat a snack, meet back up front. Unless, anybody got any questions on any of this stuff?
Don't take yours, Mike. Go on mine.
Well, I'm gonna read you my cuts actually. I think this is,
What Penn State comes out of top of Ohio State.
that'll never